This is a meeting on the power of soul and the power of soul contracts. And so we're going to go very deep into the dynamics of why things happen in our lives that are significant, and even more important, how to use them for your spiritual growth. And we always begin with a prayer, and we set our intention, and we say that everyone who is here has been guided. There are no accidents, whether you're here live or on the recording, that there's a place for you in this room. That's an important place. Something in your soul is asking for higher awareness, deeper truth, deep knowing, clarity, vision, wholeness, integrity. And so we pray and claim all those attributes of well-being and understanding and soul knowledge for everybody here, such that something gels inside you and you become very clear on what you're doing here, and you gain deep compassion for yourself and your journey, deep awareness that everything that's ever happened to you or is happening or will happen is guided by a higher hand that you have co-created with higher power. What a wonderful vision. So we ask blessings and healings and clarity and peace of mind and awareness for everybody here, live and on recording. Care to say with me out loud, and so it is, and so it is. Okay, let's roll. So I want to begin by asking you some questions, and I invite you to write them down or think out loud or think silently, whatever works for you. So there are 5 questions that we're going to begin with that will form the foundation of what we accomplish today. So the first question is, what person in your life has loved and supported you the most? And if you can write it down or type it in, do it. It'll be a nice way of grounding out your answer. Who comes to mind when I say, who's really loved you and supported you? Just a name, that's enough. Next, what person in your life has challenged you the most? Now, if somebody's face or name came to mind, it's probably them, so just go with them. Who's been the hardest person for you to be with? A parent, a sibling, a spouse, a child, somebody at work? Who gives you the hardest time of your whole life? Who's giving you the hardest time? Write it down. Next. What event in your life has been the most helpful to you? Wow. What turning point, what meeting, what encounter, what phase, what experience, what has happened to you in the course of your entire life that has most powerfully changed your life for the better? Good question. You can guess the next one. What event in your life has been the most difficult for you? Divorce, the loss of a loved one, loss of a job, health challenge, financial setback, confusion, depression. What's been the hardest for you? We all have something that's hard for us. What's been the hardest for you? Just write it down. And finally, what is the primary theme or lesson that you have explored in your life? If you were to leave this planet now and someone asked you, what area of your life rose to your consciousness as the most important one? What would you say your life's theme of learning has been? What lesson do you think you came to learn above all else? You can write it down in a few words. Okay, now with the foundation of those answers, we're going to dive into what soul contracts are and how they work. And so first, I'd like to begin with a little story. My partner, Dee, had a lovely mom. Her name was Bev. And when Dee was growing up, Bev did not like dogs in the house because she thought they were dirty. She didn't want any dirt in the house from dogs. And she came to visit us and she saw our pack of dogs, our furry kids. And she said, "Oh, I'd like a dog like your little Maltese Nani. White fur, tail wagger, friendly. I'd like a dog like that." And so about a month or two later, a dog showed up at Bev's door. And it was a white Bichon Frise, very friendly, very frisky. A tail wagger. It was the exact dog that she'd been looking for. And it had a collar, but there was no person attached to it, and she figured it was lost. So she put signs up in the neighborhood, found lost dog, and nobody showed up. So she named this dog Buddy and kept him. Well, about a week later, she gets a call. "Oh, we saw your sign. We were on vacation. Our dog watcher did not do a good job. Our dog ran away, and we think he's our dog." So, of course, Bev was heartbroken because she fell in love with this dog and she became his buddy. So the wife of the couple came to pick the dog up, and Buddy sat on the couch and he refused to move. And no matter how much this woman tried to coax him or cajole him, he didn't want to go. Mother said, I think he wants to be with you. Let me go talk to my husband." So she gets a call. Bev gets a call a couple hours later. "Well, it seems like this dog really wants to be with you, and so he's yours." That dog went on to be Bev's beloved companion for the last 5 years of her life. He was by her side. She drove around with him. And Dee and I were thrilled because she was lonely. Her husband had passed away a few years earlier. And he was the perfect godsend for this woman to spend the last 5 years of her life. And then we were shocked to hear that he was sleeping in bed with her, the dirty dog, and she was feeding him from her fork. And so it was like, what happened? Where's my mother and what have you done with her? And so we might say that Bev and Buddy had a soul contract to be together at a time when they can most empower and help and love each other. It was a God job. And so I like to think of that as a model that there are certain souls, it could be human beings or pets, who make a deal with each other to be with each other to help each other in life. Now, and then after Bev passed away, we couldn't bear the idea of Buddy going to some home who might not take care of him. So we took Buddy. We had 5 dogs already, but we took Buddy as a 6th. He's been with us for 7 years now. And he's a good boy. We're glad we're giving him a good life. We didn't want him to get any less of a life than he had. So let's go into this now. So a soul contract is an agreement that you make at a very deep level. Now let's contextualize this a little bit. If you're going to get this concept, you have to recognize that there's far more to life than personalities and bodies and social training and social agreements. That who we are as spiritual beings, we run very deep at a soul level. And before we are born, at a soul level, we make a vision, we make a pattern, we make a blueprint that we will have certain experiences strictly for the purpose of advancing our soul's growth. So you make it a level below your conscious mind before birth. You're going to connect with people, events, and experiences that will advance your spiritual awakening. That's the only purpose of a soul contract, is to advance your spiritual awakening. Now, some of them are not comfortable, but they end up advancing your spiritual awakening, which is so much more important than being comfortable. So let's look at some of the kinds of soul contracts. And by the way, if you wish to make a point or ask a question, raise your hand. The Shank will see it and let me know, or you can type it into the Shank at ACP office. So let's say there are two kinds of soul contracts. One, as we mentioned, with people who love and support you. And you can think of those, there are a lot of them. If you're in this group, you have a lot of people in the world who love and support you. And you can guess the other kind is with people and events that challenge you. And they are both equally important. They are both equally helpful. The angels are angels, and even the devils are angels, because they push you inward to look for strength and vision and wisdom that you would not have found if life had been totally easy. And then the third contract is with people and events that both love you and support you and challenge you. So this is what people call love-hate relationships, where you're married to somebody or you have a child and you love them to pieces, but they also drive you crazy. And in a way that's really good, because there's a love that's there as the glue that keeps you together, and the challenge sandpapers you. My teacher used to say that marriage, the purpose of marriage is to sandpaper each other's ego down, so you polish the jewel that you are. So your soul contracts can fall into any one of those three categories. Now, even while people play a role for your soul's growth, you are playing a role to help them in their soul's growth. There's no such thing as a one-way interaction. Course in Miracles says, when I am healed, I am not healed alone, meaning that anytime two people encounter each other, there's an opportunity for mutual growth and learning and awakening. And so let's look at some of the ways you might help other people with their growth. Well, sometimes you help them by loving them. And sometimes you help them by challenging them. Now, usually you would not purposely challenge anybody. You don't want to bug anybody or make their life any harder. But sometimes that is their experience of you. And even if somebody is bugged by you, or they argue with you, or they dislike you, you're actually really serving them. Because if you can upset them, then there's something in them that's upsettable. And like it or not, know it or not, that is where their spiritual growth lives, by dealing with the upset that you offer them. Now, you don't go around purposely upsetting people, but sometimes it happens that way. So I had an interesting story about I was on an airplane once traveling to see a spiritual teacher, and I was eating an apple, and there's this guy sitting next to me I didn't know, a businessman. And so after about my third bite, he goes like this, ooh. And I realized that when I was eating my apple, I was unknowingly squirting him with the juice in the apple. He got pretty annoyed with it. So I said, I'm so sorry, sir. I apologize. And I put the apple away. And he didn't accept my apology. He kind of sat there, made faces at me for the rest of the flight. And I felt kind of bad about it. So I went to see my spiritual teacher, and I told him that story. And he said, do you see how you served that man? I said, no, how did I do that? He said, well, he probably has a belief system that every time he sits next to somebody on an airplane, he gets an annoying passenger next to him. So he attracted you to be the annoying passenger that he expected. Why? So he could keep encountering annoying passengers until he grew beyond the belief system that I always attract somebody who's annoying. See how that works? That it was no accident that we were seated next to each other. And even though I certainly didn't mean to bother him, me bothering him was his opportunity for spiritual growth. I don't use this as an excuse to bother people. You want to be kind and compassionate always. But in the event that somebody is bothered by you, it's real, especially in a long-term relationship or a pattern, it's an indication that you have some agreement with them, that you chose to play the role of somebody who challenged them so they could grow. Now, people actually have a choice about how they will interpret and respond to your actions, as you have a choice about how you interpret and respond to theirs. So just because you scored an apple on somebody, or you break up with somebody, or you do anything that, or you leave your socks around and your wife is bugged, there's a reason. And that's that they can choose how they react to it. They don't have to be annoyed. Example, years ago, I had a friend named Jennifer, and she was a mother and a writer. And I ran into her at this conference, and she showed me this book that she was writing. It was a prototype of a book on mothering and parenting. And she said, there's family pictures in there. Would you please have a look at it while we're at the conference and give me your feedback? I said, sure. She said, just be careful, please. It's the only one I have. And so just guard it carefully. Okay. So we sat in this lecture at this auditorium, and we left. And then I saw her later on the day. She said, did you look at the book? And I realized, oh my God, I left that book under my seat in the auditorium, and I had no choice but to be honest with her. She said, well, maybe I wasn't meant to put the book out in that form anyway. She was totally cool about it. And we went back, and fortunately the custodian had found the book, and happy ending. But it was just so amazing to me that she was so relaxed about it. She could have chosen to be upset, or she could have chosen to be peaceful about it. And so if somebody's upset with you, they're exercising their right to avoid peace at that moment. They could also equally well exercise their right to be peaceful. So just because you do something that bugs somebody doesn't mean that you're the villain. You could be the teacher. Now, of course, we want to work it in the opposite way as well. When somebody bugs you, you have a choice about how to handle it. And actually, if you can choose peace instead, then you are graduating from the soul contract that you entered into them with, because you are choosing peace instead. There's a wonderful line from A Course in Miracles: I could choose peace, I could see peace instead of this. So can you see how it all dovetails so perfectly? Course in Miracles tells us there's no such thing as a random event. It says chance plays no part in God's plan. It says even somebody you stand next to in an elevator, or a child who bumps into you on the street, or somebody you marry, or somebody who you date once and never see again, they are the perfect messenger for you, and vice versa, for you both to grow spiritually. Now, this puts your life in an entirely different context now, because it seems to me that weird things pop out of the blue, or villains show up. But it's always by invitation. Everyone we meet, for better or for worse, is by invitation at a soul level, not a personality level, not an intellectual, but a soul level, which is the level of the most important level of choice. We'll stop for a moment. If anybody has a question, you can put your hand up. Or Nishank, has anybody typed any questions in just yet?
Yes, Alan, there is a question.
Okay.
Mona wants to ask, can she ask without being on video, just on audio?
Yeah,
Or
fine.
Okay, Mona, you're on. You can ask, or I can just ask it for you.
Yeah, because I typed it and I forgot. But if Ellen needs follow-up, I can follow up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do you still have my question in the chat?
Yes, I do.
It's okay. I'll
Okay,
do it. I just found it too. Okay. My question, is it okay to feel angry and annoyed? I mean, is it okay? Is it a sign to set a boundary and set someone outside your life and distance from them? I'm talking about neighbors and a few family members and even friends.
Yes, setting healthy boundaries could be one of your soul lessons that you came to explore. And the thing is, if you can set boundaries with love, you're going to be far more successful than if you set boundaries with upset. So simultaneously set the boundary, which is fine, but do your best to find a place of peace and choice and well-being inside you, even while you set the boundary. Does that make sense, Mona?
Does that mean you need to feel at peace about it? Like if it's still bothering you, like for example, that the mind chatter is like, oh my God, I can't believe that person is still doing that, or they're so annoying, and that's still going on in my head. I mean,
Yeah,
do I have to sit with that like in
you
meditation
do.
until I feel good toward them?
You do. You do. Those are ego voices. How dare that person do that? I can't believe they're still doing that. I'm insulted, blah, 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 blah. That's the voice of ego. And as long as you engage with the voice of ego, you're going to be stuck yourself. So you have to do whatever you can to love, send them love, release them, forgive them, have compassion for them, have compassion for yourself, ask higher power to help release you. Your homework is to go within until you can get clear about it. Does that make sense?
It does, but one additional question is, does that mean that it's better to keep silent? Because I tend to complain verbally, and like, is it, I'm thinking of like monks in monasteries, like,
Yeah.
is it really important to keep silent? Because when you bring voice to it, sometimes I feel relief, but then sometimes I
Well,
feel
it
terrible.
depends. It's a good question. It depends on how and when you're giving voice to it. If you're upset with someone and you want to heal it and you need to talk about it, so you talk with a coach or a counselor, a therapist, or friend, and you give voice to it in order for it to be healed. There's a point at which, if you keep giving voice to it, it's going to back up on you and you're going to stay stuck. So if you give voice to it with a conscious intention, that's one thing. If you're just going over and over and over the ego voice, that's another. That's going to drag you down.
Got it. That's
Does that make
perfect.
sense?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
good, good. Just an example on setting boundaries. We'll go to Joe Don in just a moment. Dee and I used to live in a very remote area in Hawaii, and there were lots of wild pigs around. It was just a big nature area. And these pigs were coming onto our property and bothering our dogs once in a while. And we liked the pigs. We were happy they were, they were nice animals. They were God's animals. And so we had to put up a sort of an extensive fence around our property, and we worked hard to secure it so these pigs couldn't get in. But neither of us felt any ill will toward the pigs. We loved the pigs, but we did have to set the boundary for our safety and for the dog's safety and for the pig's safety, because he could have gotten in a fight with a dog. And so we would actually, take scraps of food and throw it over the fence because we wanted to support the pigs. We had nothing against the pigs, but they did not have the right to be on our property because that was dangerous for several parties. So in that situation, we set a boundary with love. We weren't mad at them, but we had to keep them out. And that's sometimes that's a way to do a healthy boundary. Okay, Jordana, do you want to put your video and or audio on?
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Hi, Alan. Great to see you.
Hi there.
Great to see familiar names too. Okay. The special relationship question. Would you give me some insight on a breakup that seemed more devastating than any other boyfriend relationship breakup, and that no one before or since, I hate to say the word can compare because that's not a good thing, but that the feelings of love were greater for this person that left me, obviously, than I felt for any other man in my life. And it's like, and then it's hard. And then I've never met anyone since. And this was 20 years ago or 15 years ago, something like that. So it's hard for me to put into perspective how he is a lesson for me when it just seems like it's just this dragging, annoying kind of feeling that lingers.
Well, that's a fabulous question. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
let us say you had a soul contract with him, that he would be a teacher of something, somebody you would grow as a result of your interaction with him. So how have you grown spiritually as a result of your relationship with him?
It did catapult me into
Yes?
into seeking spiritual remedies, spiritual awakening,
Wow.
understanding. So
Wow.
that's there.
He was a master teacher for you. He kicked you onto the spiritual path.
But then I think, oh, I would still have that path even with him, but maybe not. It could have been a high ego. This person is a well-known rock star, and maybe I would have been playing in the ego field tremendously.
Yeah. If he was right for you, Jordana, you would still be with him. But you had a soul contract to interact for X amount of time, during which he would teach you certain lessons. Perhaps you taught him lessons as well. Your paths intersected and you both moved on. And it was absolutely the perfect execution of your agreement with him. You know why it was perfect?
I'd like to hear your perspective. Why?
Because that's the way it was. Because
Perfect, right?
that's the way it was. And now there's another lesson. Can you release him as Mr. Right who got away and get on with your life and perhaps meet somebody else if you'd like to, or at least come to peace about your relationship with him? How cool would that be?
That would be very cool and something that's been so difficult to do.
Okay, can I give you a little homework?
Yes.
Okay. When you feel quiet and relaxed and peaceful, I'd like you to write him a letter and say all the feelings you have had about him or have about him, the lessons you've learned from him, and I'd like you to write him a letter of release. After all is said and done, that I now release you to get on with your life. I release myself to get on with my life. I realize that carrying you around anymore is not going to do me or you any good. And I now free myself and I free you. Amen.
Okay.
Can you do that?
And
Did
so
you
it
ever
is.
see?
Yes.
Did you ever see the movie Weekend at Bernie's?
I think years ago I did.
Yeah. These two guys go to see their boss, who's a gangster, and they find he's been killed. He's been shot by somebody. But there's this big party at his house, and they're afraid that they'll be blamed for his murder. So they put a baseball cap on him and they prop him up, and they carry him around this entire weekend, and nobody knows he's dead. And it's some very hilarious sight gags. Pretty funny movie. But the point is that they carry this corpse around as if he's still alive. And this is what we do with relationships. We carry people from 100 years around as if they're still with us, but they're dead. The relationship is dead except for the lessons it's yielding us. So, let them go and get on with it. So watch that movie again. It might be the story of your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Going to move on. We'll check on some other hands later. Okay, hope this is interesting to you. It's interesting to me. Okay, so a soul, this is a little bit related to Jordana's question, that a soul contract will keep uniting you with the person with whom you have the agreement or someone similar until the contract is fulfilled. This is why you can't just off people or run away from them because they bug you, because they will either show up again or someone else just like them will show up again. A friend of mine wrote a book called Why Is This Happening to Me Again? His name was Michael Rice. And he said, you get on the plane to leave somebody in New York that you're trying to get away from, and the person who meets you at the plane in Los Angeles finishes the sentence the person in New York started, that they left you with, because if you have a lesson, you're going to keep magnetizing the same people in different bodies, in different forms, in different ways of expression. It's just that, someone would say, I keep marrying alcoholics, or if I go to a party, if there's one alcoholic there, I'll attract them. Or people who match my father. I've married my father 3 times. because you still have lessons with your father. And so people show up who represent the energy of your father, but the law of attraction is working perfectly. Until you resolve your issues with your father, then you can resolve your issues with all the men who match him as well. Now, this can be in a fun way too, because let's say you have a love relationship with somebody, and it's a truly positive love relationship, and you keep trying to push them away, but they keep coming back because you belong with each other for good reasons. I know one couple who got married and divorced 3 times, and they remarried because they were married in spirit. They were glued with crazy glue or super glue, and they couldn't get rid of each other because they still had work to do with each other. I remember years ago, I had a friend, and she rented me a room in her house. And I had just moved from living in the country with 4 guys doing yoga and meditation for years and years. And she was a Jewish mother in New Jersey with 3 boys, preteen and teen. And you can imagine the difference in that house between me living out in the country meditating. And she was loud and yelling at them. She was nasal and they were fighting with each other. And I'd come down, and one guy would be on top of the other, shaking him, choking him, going, "Give, sucker, give, sucker." And the next night I come down, the other guy was on top of the other guy, "Give, sucker." And I thought, this is crazy, man. I got to get out of here. So after my school year, I said, well, I'm leaving. Love you lots, but I'm out of here. And I went away for the summer, and I came back, and I couldn't find another place to live. And so I ended up with her and the boys again. And the second year was hard, but easier. Next summer I left, came back. Oh, she was the easiest place to be. So I was there for like 3 years. And by that 3rd year, I developed my relationship with the boys. And I used to give one of them guided meditations. I sit on his bed at night and help him go to sleep. And we became friends. And I really, really started to love them and like them. And then she came to me one day. She said, well, I'm getting married. We need your room. So I graduated from that place. But I graduated with peace because I had to keep coming back there until my relationship with all of them was fulfilled. And then those kids called me years later. One called me 20 years later. "How you doing, Alan? I saw your name on the internet." So we had to play out that contract over 3 years until I graduated from it. I tried to run away from it, but there would be glue that kept yanking me back. And it was good, because the relationship ended up with love. I remained friends with her and her husband. Everything was a nice ending. But I had to keep coming back until I mastered that situation. I heard about another couple who they've been going out for a while, and they weren't getting along. And they decided to part, at least be open to see other people. They were arguing, okay, let's go see other people. And both of them went online to a dating service, and they found new partners that they started communicating with. And they both used aliases until they got to meet the person. So after several weeks, each of them made a date with their new partner to meet in a certain restaurant. And they both showed up, and it was them. They found each other on the internet with aliases. So they belonged together. There was a reason they were together. You see how the game works. Out of all the people on the dating service, they hooked with each other again, and they had to get on with their relationships. So their love for each other and their desire to be together, which ran deeper than the personality issues, glued them together. And then I read a story about an 80-year-old Chinese man who saved a young boy from drowning. And it was dramatic because this man was old and he was ill, but he saved this boy. And then upon discovering who this boy was, this older man had actually saved the boy's father from drowning 30 years earlier. He was like a guardian angel to them. So, how does stuff like that happen? These are not accidents. These are God's ways of putting people together who need to be together for important reasons. So if you get nothing else out of this program, nothing is an accident. Every relationship, A Course in Miracles says, is a holy encounter. Every meeting, even if it's with a waitress or a bus driver, is God meeting God for the purpose of recognizing God. If they choose not to do it, that's fine, but we have to assume our role as a God recognizer. Okay, iPad, do you want to come on? Your hand has been up. Who is that? Is that Marianne?
Sheila.
Sheila. Hi, Sheila. Yes,
Hi.
Sheila.
Hi, how you doing?
Let's talk
Nice
about
to
today.
see you. Well, yeah, I don't know how to fix that, why it doesn't have my name instead of iPad. Obviously, it's on my iPad.
Go right ahead.
Anyway, my situation, most difficult, challenging relationship only takes a second to answer. I'm a birth mother. In 1969, I was an unwed mother, was in a home for unwed mothers, and very, very unwillingly, didn't have a choice, relinquished my daughter for adoption. And I literally lived for the day that I would find her. And I did find her when she was 19. The other part of my story is that I actually got pregnant as a result of being raped, which, you know, again, probably no accident. I mean, it's a whole long story. Anyway, you know, still, I wanted her, I loved her, and it was my main goal to let her know that I love her. And we've met over the years 3 times. She's mostly rejected me. Her adoptive parents never want anything to do with me. So that puts her in the middle of, you know, the loyalty issue is huge for people who are adopted. And so at this point, you know, I've tried to reconcile with her, and she sent me this very hurtful letter 2 years ago. And but mostly I've sent her cards or gifts for her birthday. And this past year, I sent her a card with a fancy chocolate bar in it, and I didn't get a bad response, which I felt like, oh, well, that was progress. So, you know, she's my only child, and I have 3 grandchildren who I have never met or spoken to, but thanks to Facebook, I have pictures. And, you know, like I said, we have met, but, you know, she doesn't want a relationship. And I respect that. It's not like I'm going to go knocking on her door. She lives on the other side of the country anyway. So, anyway, I'd like to hear what what's the soul contract?
Well, you tell me, let's say that you had an agreement with her that she would help you learn something very important for your soul's growth. What lessons or awakening or advancements have you extracted from this relationship, dear?
Well, something actually really huge. I made a documentary film about adoption, about the life process for adoptees, birth parents, and adoptive parents. It's same race, transracial adoption. My story is in there, and in a sculpture that I make. It's called "Unlocking the Heart of Adoption." It really turned out to be the groundbreaking film in adoption, and it's changed, you know, huge number of people's lives.
Wow.
So, you know, so that has been the great gift kind of that's come out of it.
Yeah.
You know.
So there are many, many layers to this.
Yeah.
And, you know, one that you just mentioned is you ended up serving a lot of people. Bringing healing and relief from suffering to a lot of people who had issues around adoption. Well, that's a huge soul contract with everybody who your film has helped. So that's monumental. You also got to exercise your right to meet her after all those years. That was a powerful manifestation. You probably got to express yourself to her. And now you get to practice loving her, even if she's kind of stuck between 2 parents.
Right. And I probably, you know, express too much, mostly in letters, you know. But, you know, it's
she's probably been the best teacher of your life, would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you can thank her. And remember, dear, that on a soul level, her love for you is perfect.
Oh.
It's only on a personality level and a social level, which is all mucked up. You on a soul level, you are absolutely, totally, unequivocally connected to the heart, and her love for you is not diminished at all by what happens on the personality level. Does that give you some comfort?
I appreciate you saying that. And, you know, I've been meditating for a long time. So I'll just say that there have been things that have happened in her life that I kind of meditated to see what's going on for her.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, and then I had it confirmed in reality. Like
Uh-huh.
I knew she had a baby before she told me. And a friend checked
Wow.
it out, and lo and
Yeah.
behold, you know,
Yeah.
because I've always believed that there is that connection.
Yeah.
But,
So you see
you know, the love
how,
doesn't get returned in
do
the
you
real
see how that psychic, like almost like umbilical cord, like psychic umbilical
Yes.
cords, like taffy, are joining you, even though she's in another family, she doesn't talk to you. You are so connected at a heart and soul level that you know her life, even if she doesn't tell you about it. Now that's
Right.
a mother's love, and
Yes.
that's a child's response to the mother's love. So on a
Uh,
spiritual level, your relationship is perfectly intact. And
oh,
your lesson is to keep loving
thank you.
her no matter what. That's your lesson. Just love, 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 and trust, 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 trust.
Which is what I'm trying to do. Thank you very
And
much.
you are doing it. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Love you too for saying
Good,
that.
a
Thank
good,
you.
a good example. Okay. Let's move on a little bit and we'll come back to Cosette in a moment or two. I want to cover all of our ground today. So some people serve as agents to help you fulfill your soul contract. What does this mean? It means that you may not have a contract with them, but somebody shows up as a facilitator of a soul contract. So even the people who play sort of like minor roles in your play, they're connected to the major role. When I was in college, I dated a girl named Ellen for a while. We drifted apart. And then a while later, I got a voicemail from Ellen's roommate saying Ellen would like you to call her. And so I called her and we rekindled our relationship. And we went on together, be together for like 4 years. And so Ellen's roommate, who played Cupid, she knew Ellen still liked me. She was an agent of a soul contract that Ellen and I had. My contract wasn't so much with a roommate as with Ellen, but she kind of moved the pieces around on the board for us to be together. And then years ago, Dee and I were visiting Fiji, and we were thinking about buying some property there, maybe not. And we didn't know really where to go on our vacation. We just went there and figured it out. And so we were in the airport and there were 2 travel agencies, one on each side of the hallway. And I went to the first travel agency and it was kind of a long line. So I figured I'll go to the other one. So I went to the other one and there was one couple in line ahead of us. And Dee and I were trying to decide to go to a certain island or a certain place on the main island. And the people in front of us, coincidentally, were going to this place on the main island, a little resort hotel that we were thinking about. And so we took this as a sign that maybe we should go to this little boutique hotel. And then when this guy was giving the travel agent his name was Alan Howard Cope, C-O-P-E. And my name is Alan Howard Cohen, C-O-H-E, and our names are almost identical. So well, that's another sign. So we went to this little boutique hotel and we enjoyed it. And then we found out that there was a property for sale down the road. And so we went to look at this property and we made friends with this Fijian family who lived next door. And because of them, we bought that property. We lived in Fiji for 3 or 4 years. And we became so close with this native family, 2 parents and 5 kids. They were our spiritual teachers. We just loved them. We spiritually adopted those kids and they helped us and we helped them. We learned so much from each other. We ended up not living there, but our relationship with them was like spiritual family. These poor people who lived in a little wooden shack with no electricity, running water. And when all is said and done, we realized that the purpose of our going to Fiji was to join with that family because we helped them and they helped us. Even once in a while, Dia's still on Facebook with one of the kids. And I realized it was no accident that that one travel agency was crowded. It was no accident that the people in front of line in front of us were looking at this hotel we were looking at. It was no accident. His name was almost identical to mine. If that hadn't happened, we might have gone to this other remote island and never met our family. But there was a soul contract between us and that family that changed both of our lives forever. And see, it was all a big setup. So some people are agents of your soul contract. Alan Howard Cope, wherever he is. Thank you. Okay, Cosette, let's put Cosette on. You're on, Cosette? Hello,
Hi.
dear.
How are you? So since I know I had soul contracts with both my husbands that died, but they died of the same thing. They both had heart attacks, and I find it really difficult to understand why that happened. They both had the same kind of very sudden death, and why I would ever want to take that on. And the other question that goes into that is I have a hard time understanding the non-physical realm, and I'd like more clarification on understanding and belief of non-physical reality.
Wow, we could do long workshops on each of those questions.
Sorry,
But
but
if you want to find out what happened, why something happened, one way to do it is to ask yourself, well, two questions. One is, how did I learn and grow from those experiences? So answer that if you would. How did you learn and grow from the sudden deaths of your two husbands, my dear?
well, yes, that's pretty clear to me. Like with my first husband, I really dove into like spiritual growth, spiritual reading, quantum, realms, and so it just progressed me spiritually, and
Right.
that I probably would not have gone into it like
Right.
that. So that was a definite. And and with my second husband, he was definitely the most he led me to probably the best event in my life, and also he was the most challenging person in my life. And it there's just so much that I've learned from that relationship.
Yeah.
So I know that part.
Well, that's the answer to your question. Because they were both your teachers. They both stimulated you to learn and grow and move ahead on your spiritual path.
But what do you think about the part that they died the same way? I just think that's bizarre.
Well, it's not bizarre because they were did you ever have a belief? Now, the other point is that you can always tell what you believe by what you're getting. So did you ever have a belief that men leave suddenly or men leave without notice?
I don't know that I felt suddenly or without notice. I don't know that I thought that. But when I was in high school, I remember this saying, I'm never going to get married because men always die. Men die before women. And so I don't think I want to go through that. So, and then I must have forgotten it.
But your subconscious did not forget it.
Right.
And so you kind of pre-programmed that, not for a bad reason, but they were playing at your expectations and beliefs about that men die before women. So now you can offset that by marrying somebody and dying before they do. They can change that belief.
That's my plan. Yeah.
No, I'm just being silly. You're going to live a long, healthy. I know you're very healthy. No, I'm just joking. But can you see how all the pieces fit together when you're honest? You know, when you honestly admit it. Wow, I had this belief that men die before women. So that kind of honesty brings your subconscious beliefs up to the surface, so you can examine them and recognize there was no accident in any of that. And so the bottom line to remember, dear, is that every single experience is in the service of spiritual growth. And once you realize that, you move ahead very quickly, because then things are not random or you're not a victim.
So then just one more quick question about the non-physical realm and soul contracts. So are there, I just feel like I'm not convinced about what happens before death and our existence and then after death. And I'd like to be.
Wouldn't we all?
Okay, fair enough.
What is your best understanding of what happens to the spirit when you die? What is your idea of that?
You know, I go back and forth about that. I feel like, okay, my best explanation is that we are all energy, and energy doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
So we go on maybe in some form, but I don't think we are the personality anymore. And I think if we connect with a person who's passed on, it's a lot of it is our own, could be our own projection, but it's also maybe some kind of thing where this is what we need to hear, because I have gotten answers, and I can talk to people. So there's something, I just don't really understand all of it.
Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of soul searching and exploration with this, and certainly having two husbands die suddenly will do that to you. It'll really make you ask about, what are we here for, and can I contact these people anyway, and am I going to meet them again? And these are the kind of questions that make life worth living, because they take us to a deeper place than shallow life allows us.
Right.
And so, can you, just from this short conversation with you today, it seems that you've had tremendous, deep, complex lessons that you've gained through these experiences that have made you a deep thinker and a visionary person, an open-hearted person. So, of course, it's sad that you lost them, but God bless them. They helped you, and they still are. And I'm certain that they're still in contact with you, even from the other side. So I think you're doing better than you think you are. I think you know more than you think you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on, and we'll get to Adriana in just a moment. Okay. I hope this is good for you. I'm having fun. I hope you are too. So we also have group soul contracts, which means that you may be in a family or an organization or a religion or a culture where many different soul contracts intertwine, certainly your family. So, people come to me and say, well, I'm getting divorced, and I'm concerned about the kids. And, if I'm convinced that they really are getting divorced, and that's a true choice, okay. So your kids have a soul contract with you and your partner. They came in to learn certain lessons that they wouldn't have learned if you hadn't got divorced. And while divorce is not the ideal scenario, when it happens, there are many, many lessons and opportunities for spiritual growth. Usually, parents have two different lifestyles or two different belief systems. That's why they're heading in different directions. And then the kids get to examine both lifestyles and belief systems to see what resonates with them. Maybe one does, maybe the other does, maybe a combination of the two. Then the kids get to observe how you divorce. If you do a divorce with animosity and bitterness, then they're going to have a lesson related to that. If you divorce with love and mutual support, which a lot of people do, they're going to see that it's possible to go your separate ways and still be kind to each other. So how you divorce is more important than that you divorce. And the lessons you bestow on your kids are equally important to them as they are for you. They signed up for it on a certain level. They signed up for it knowing that they would encounter this situation at this time of their life, and they would somehow have to make sense of it. And it's not fun usually, but it can be easier than you think, because when you welcome it as a soul evolution, it becomes your friend. Now, I know a guy who, he said he had two fathers. One his biological father and then his stepfather. His biological father was a playboy, and he was running around with women and gambling and drinking, and he was out there. And finally his wife divorced him, and she remarried a guy who's the total opposite of husband number one. He was conservative and controlling and quiet and almost morose. And my client said, the contrast between the two fathers was so great that I had to make sense of how they were different. And he said there were things I liked and didn't like about both of them. I liked about my biological father that he was fun, he was playful, he was generous, he was gregarious, he was funny, but he didn't observe people's feelings. He was disrespectful to my mother. The other guy was very safe and controlling, but he was boring. And so my client said, what I decided to do is to take the best from each one and leave the worst from each one. So now that I'm a father, he said, I want to take the best of both fathers and weave them into my fatherhood and avoid the negative aspects of both fathers. So you can see how he used that experience to advance his soul growth, to become a better father himself. So and now the mother had to figure out how to deal with both fathers. And each father had to figure out how to deal with the wife and the son. So there were lessons flying around in all directions, each of which was perfect for the person who had to learn the lesson. These are never random situations. Nobody's a victim. And we're all each carving our destiny by how we choose to respond to situations that are actually neutral, but the experience we create is a result of the interpretation that we lay over it. Don't ask me to say that again, but it was good. Okay, so let's go back to the questions for a moment. I think Adriana had her hand up. Adriana, would you like to put your video on, please?
Hi. Can you
Oh.
hear me?
Hi.
Hi. My question is, I have a business. I'm healthy, but I keep struggling with romantic relationships.
Yes.
And I was listening to what you said about the subcontract that you cannot walk away because you'll keep magnetizing the same people in different expressions or different bodies.
Right.
So for me, I keep magnetizing emotionally unavailable men, and I don't know what energy they represent because my parents got divorced, but I healed that. Got divorced when I was 18. I'm 39 now. I healed that years ago, and I'm not sure what kind of issues I have to resolve or what kind of pattern I keep running or what is the lesson that I'm not learning because I become conscious several years ago and I still struggle into the same situation. So I'm not really learning my lesson or understanding what I need to learn.
Well, let's reframe this as an opportunity. Say, I keep struggling and not learning. Well, what if the fact that you keep creating this is the universe giving you more and more opportunities to practice the lesson until you master it? So you didn't do anything wrong, and there's nothing that's bad about this. Your current boyfriend is your best opportunity to practice the lessons of relationship. What do you think your current lesson of relationship is, my dear? How's your boyfriend helping you learn and grow?
Well, he doesn't care about my needs, so I think it helps me to understand that all the love and all of the needs can be met by myself.
Ah.
And he's emotionally unavailable, which makes me kind of understand. unconditional love, which is acceptance.
Wow. Wow.
And my dad was emotionally unavailable, so maybe there's something there that I'm still
Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to change on him.
Yeah. So what you said, dear, was so powerful. You said two things that really got my attention. You said, well, I'm learning that what I'm looking for is in myself, which is the lesson of all relationships. And you said that I'm learning to love him unconditionally, which is the other big relation of all relationships. So can you see how perfect of teacher he is? And bless you, I compliment you for taking those challenges and making them work on your behalf. You are absolutely using them for your spiritual growth.
But it is
So,
very painful.
what's that?
It's painful.
He's what?
I'm saying it is painful. It is
Yes,
painful.
it is painful. So you're learning how you get out of the pain is your lesson. How do you think you get out of this pain? You're not
I don't
supposed to
know.
stay in pain.
That's what I've been trying to figure out.
Can I give you a hint?
Yes, of course, please.
Keep going in instead of leaning out. Notice the things that you're looking for from him that you're not giving yourself. Everything you want from him is something you need to practice giving yourself. And when you become self-sourcing, he won't have power over your happiness. Does that make sense to you?
When I can supply everything for myself?
When you become self-sourcing, when you look in to feed yourself, instead of needing him to feed you spiritually, then you will graduate from that pattern.
But then what is the purpose of being in a couple and a relationship? I want to have a family and kids.
That's all fine. That's all fine. But that's really secondary to your spiritual lessons. You know, having a physical baby is not the same thing as growing spiritually. So he's actually helping you have a spiritual baby by birthing your higher self. And if you can really become self-sufficient, he won't be able to pull your strings, and either your relationship will gravitate to a higher level, or you go in different directions and you will create a new relationship on a higher level. How that happens is less important than that you rise to a higher consciousness.
I really, I'm working hard so that I can learn my lesson.
Good, good. And you are. Keep doing it. Don't give up just because it's hard in the moment. The purpose of it being hard is for you to come out on the other side of it, and you will. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I know it's hard, but pain pushes and vision pulls, which means that anytime there's a pain, it's life moving us to rise to a higher consciousness. And then we can understand why there was the pain and how to get out of it. The purpose of life is not for you to stay in pain. Anybody. Do not accept pain as a given in life. That's a very sad interpretation of life. The only purpose of pain, you know, when you put your finger in a flame, the idea is to get it out of it. If you leave your finger there, it'll melt. But when you touch the flame, you go, oh, it hurts. The only purpose is to get out of it. And so the only purpose of pain is to rise to a consciousness where the thing that caused the problem is no longer a problem. Okay, we'll go to Alexi in just a minute. I want to move on a little bit. Okay, so we also have soul contracts with situations. What does this mean? It means that you may live in a country where there's a certain kind of government, or you may be in a certain religion, or you may be involved in a cult, or some kind of business where there's a lot of people who get together and there's a shared soul contract. I coached a woman who grew up in communist Russia, and she said, boy, you know, those communists, they threatened to punish you at every turn if you didn't follow the party line. So I learned to lie, and I learned to sell my soul away so I wouldn't get in trouble. She said, they manipulated by guilt. I said, that sounds like a lot of religions to me. And there are people who grow up in religions that manipulate by guilt and fear of punishment, fear of hell. And there are people in cults who they tell you if you leave the cult, you're going to go to hell, or we're your only salvation. And it takes a lot of energy for people to leave this cult. They have to develop a lot of momentum to break free of the gravitational field of the cult, but they do. And when they finally leave, they're so empowered. One of my coach graduates was a lifelong Mormon, and he finally decided to leave the religion. And they levied a lot of pressure against him. Oh, you're going to be guilty, and God's going to punish you, and this is your true family. And it took him a lot to leave and make his own life independent of the guilt that they attempted to lay on him. But he grew immensely. In fact, he developed a whole new career on coaching ex-Mormons or people who wanted to be ex-Mormon. Now, I'm not against the Mormon religion, but he found it to be a cult, and he found it to be something he needed to get of. So now that lesson of leaving under tremendous social pressure was really empowering to him, because he had to get his guidance from within instead of depending on the religion to validate you. If you need your religion to validate you, you're not validatable, because you're giving your power away to the religion. The only validation comes from inside. It's between you and God. It's not between you and the religion and God. It's between you and God. Now, you can be in religions are fine, do them if you need to. But ultimately, the relationship that goes like this, not like this. It's not a three-way relationship. It's you and God, and the religion is there too, but it's you and God. So this man developed his own unique personal relationship with higher power that he lives by now. He's remarried, he has a new family, he has a whole career based on coaching people who want to get out of religions they find oppressive. So that was a huge soul contract for him and all the other people who wanted to leave that religion. I'm not against Mormonism, it really helps a lot of people, but there are people who want to leave, as there are in all religions. Getting the gumption to leave, if that's your true choice, is a great big soul contract. So, you may have a soul contract with a company. A lot of people in the company are interacting, and they're all learning the same lessons similarly together. We get a lot of people in my coach training who are tired of working the corporate world, and they want to become entrepreneurs. And they set up their coaching practice because they want to live with integrity and live by their own values and help people and have a spiritual foundation. And so we guide them to set up a coaching practice independent of working for a corporation. Nothing wrong with working for a corporation, but if the corporation is soulless and your soul is dying in the job, then you might want to consider an alternative. Okay, Alexi. Hi, Alexi.
Hi there. When my daughter was 20 years ago, when my daughter was 19, I moved across to the other side of the country because she was at that time away at university and she was really never at home. And so when I came back 6 years later, she has not wanted to have anything to do with me. I came back because she was getting married. Didn't have any say or any part of the wedding. I have seen my 4 grandchildren after they have been born. I visit sporadically. She never will pick up the phone. She'll never invite me over for dinner or Christmas or Thanksgiving or say happy birthday or anything like that. I have come to a place where I really have accepted it, and I have totally forgiven her for whatever it is. We did have a discussion 15 years ago, let bygones be bygones. I did my best. And she said, yeah, fine, but I can't reach her. And for 2 years, there's a quote that says, when disrespect is being served, have the courage to leave the dining room table. It wasn't a dining room table, but, so I took it figuratively. And then I sort of thought, well, I don't really see my grandchildren. I'm not part of their life. But I still would like to sort of maybe keep a little bit in contact. She will always return my phone calls, but she won't take the initiative to pick up the phone. I'm at a loss. What do I do?
Why do you think that she has distanced herself from you, Alexi? What's going on in her
There's something there that I don't know what it is.
Take a guess. Why would she turn her back on her mother like that?
The only thing I can think of is she helped me out financially some years ago. That's the only thing I can think of.
So she might be afraid you're a financial burden or something like that. Is that the idea?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Have you had a heart-to-heart with her about this and said something
I
I'd
did
really
like
like to?
when I first came back from you know, having moved away, and she's very hard to reach, and she said, yeah, everything's fine, you know, no, there's nothing wrong, but there is something wrong.
Can you make a statement of your experience without demanding anything of her? And say, I sure love you and I sure value our relationship. And, you know, you don't invite me, that's okay. But I just like to understand what's happening inside you and let you know that I love you. Can we talk about this? I really want to have a good relationship with you. Is there anything I can do to promote that? If it just kind of came to her vulnerably and openly like that, would that be an option for you?
Yeah, I could gladly do that.
Yeah, you know, you might make some progress. Just kind of be naked and vulnerable and say, this is my experience. But the trick is to do it without demanding anything from her.
Right. Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
just say, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I like. And I just want to hear your perspective on it. And, you know, I'm willing to hear whatever you have to share.
Hmm.
Kind of, you know, open the door for communication. You know, she might walk through it.
Okay, thank you. I just needed some insight. Thank you.
Yeah. In the meantime, what I'd like you to do is just send her love spiritually.
Oh yeah.
And sit and, you know, quietly just talk to her soul and love her and support her and say, you must be hurting and I don't want you to be hurting and I really would value, you know, just kind of, you can do things on a spiritual level that sometimes you can't do on a logistical level, but the spiritual leads to logistical very often.
Mm. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Try those. And then if we interact again on another seminar or whatever, let me know, because I think you're in a good place with it because I hear your willingness and I hear your honesty and I hear your heart and I hear your vulnerability. And it seems to me like you're beyond the upset and you just want to understand and have it work now. Is that the idea?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I'm definitely above the upset. You know, it's
Yeah.
just I want to understand. Yes.
And that space of clarity is going to be the facilitator for anything good that could happen. So I think you're in a really good position to make progress on this.
Okay, face to face or on the phone?
Whatever works best for you. What do you think would
Okay.
work best for you?
Well, she lives a fair distance away, so
Mhm.
maybe on the phone.
Okay, try it, see what happens, you know, just, and then, you know, before you do it, you pray and you say, okay, great spirit, I'm doing this as an act of faith. And I'd like to see something good come from it. So, you know, if there's some way you could help facilitate a movement here, and I invite spirit into this conversation, and I trust that something good could come of it. You kind of say a short prayer in your own words beforehand. And the Course in Miracles, they call that turning it over to spirit, just letting spirit to
Yeah.
guide the result.
Okay.
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 Good.
And just real one quick, when you were just talking about soul contracts, you said, you know, with cults, with businesses, with government.
Yeah.
So could you say in some capacity we have a soul contract with the government and the way we're being mandated and controlled?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, we had a soul contract with President Obama. There was a soul contract with the president that followed him. There's a soul contract with the next president. You know, if something is in your consciousness and it's affecting you, especially emotionally, then there's a reason.
Mm.
So many things that so many people learned from the recent administration and from coronavirus and the economy. There's just endless lessons. And you know, some people are just treating themselves as victims. And other people say, wait a minute, there's lessons here. Let me see if I can work this in my favor. Ooh, I can advance as a result of this. So there are political soul contracts as well.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, one more section and then we'll field any more questions. So let me get this up here. So you can have soul contract with situations, like a health situation. You know, like Franklin Roosevelt was in a wheelchair and he ended up, you know, being one of our greatest presidents. He was elected to 4 different terms and he guided the US through the Depression and World War II. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but, you know, he was a good guy. And people saw him in a wheelchair eventually And they learned from the mastery and the leadership that he led even while he was in a wheelchair. So that was a lesson for lots of people. He had his own lessons about being in a wheelchair. Stephen Hawking, same kind of thing. The poor guy was, his body was kind of mangled from that disease, but he had one of the greatest minds, the greatest physics minds of all time. If ever there was a demonstration that who we are is not our body, his body was so severely contorted and limited, but his mind was out there. His mind was brilliant. So he taught millions of people that, hey, my body doesn't work so well, but my mind sure is working. And the same thing with beloved Ram Dass. He was in a wheelchair for the last 20 years of his life. He had a stroke. And he was the same loving, giving, compassionate, humorous, funny guy that he was before he had the stroke. And so he taught me that it's possible for a human being to have physical limitations and remember that their connection to God so fervently that it does not bring them down in consciousness. He was a teacher of love even more so after his wheelchair time than he was beforehand, because he was demonstrating love in a situation that most people would have a hard time demonstrating love. So, if you have a health challenge, or you live in an area that's challenging, or you have a financial situation that's challenging, these are all soul setups, once again, strictly for the purpose of your soul growing. If your soul grew through it, there was a soul contract that had a very, very deep level. Personality does not create soul contracts. The soul creates soul contracts. Okay, let's chat with Maxime, and we have some more time until the end. If anybody else wants to raise your hand and speak up, or type and Nishank, after Maxime, Nishank, if there's anybody who typed in, let us know. Hey, Maxime.
Good morning, afternoon. It's good to see you. It's been a while we've connected. I was inspired by the others to come up again today.
Thank you.
Adriana, a question popped up, this one for me, and I feel like I'm getting the soul contract. I'm understanding it. It's not landing here yet. I'm resisting it. And I guess my question is, what now? There's a sense, I sense a feel of commitment and action in the soul contract at one point. Once you understand
specific.
it.
What particular situation is moving you?
Yeah, it would help, right? There would be a lot, but let's stick to the obvious. For the few times that we've interacted, it was around marriage,
okay,
and relationship and love relationships, and now it became family a little bit into this mix. But my wife has helped me connected with compassion, with forgiveness, love a lot.
Yeah.
And yet I'm not fully committed.
Fully
so committed
to
the marriage.
To marriage.
Yeah.
How about being more committed to your spiritual path than the marriage, and trusting that as you get aligned with your spiritual path, the dynamics of the marriage will reveal themselves. We have the cart before the horse, don't we? We think, well, if I could just get my marriage together, my spiritual path would work. But it's the other way around. If I got my spiritual path together, somehow the marriage or whatever happens with the marriage would line up with that. But you have to do the marriage from the inside out rather than the outside in.
Yeah.
What do you think this marriage is pushing your soul to learn and grow and know, Maxime?
Acceptance, love.
Love.
Yeah. I think that's the part I still need to shine a little bit. Maybe self-love.
Self-love. And how could you be loving yourself more in this marriage? What would a self-loving person do?
honoring the call or what's coming up.
Honoring what's coming up.
Yeah,
Letting yourself feel what you're feeling.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah, but yes, and it's there's a lot of fear around that because I'm not sure what
if
coming
the-
up.
What if the feelings that are coming up are your friends? What if there's no such thing as a bad feeling or a wrong feeling? What if
Mhm.
all your feelings are arrows pointing in a direction that leads to healing? What if
I know
none of
that.
those-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acceptance again.
Yes, so acceptance of my feelings, acceptance of myself, acceptance of my partner, acceptance of my life. Someone wrote a book called What's in the Way is the Way.
The impediment of action is action. Yeah.
So, you're perfectly perched for your perfect lesson with your partner. She came to you by God to help you learn and grow, and you did for her too.
That's true.
And you have all the tools to turn a special relationship into a holy relationship. And the more you do that, the more clearly you will see what the relationship is really about.
Patience. That's what's coming up as you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and you're your own soulmate. That you want to be falling in love with yourself. And the more you rise in love with yourself, I should say, the more you rise in love with your partner. Work the relationship from the inside out, and you'll see the outside will reflect the inside.
I love it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you tonight.
Okay. Well, I think I want to end with a really nice visualization. I hope this has been helpful to you. I really put a lot of thought into this, and I've been thinking about this stuff for many years, and I've been applying my own relationships, my own health, and my own finances to see how it all fits. It's just amazing how the same stuff keeps showing up until you handle it. But it's not a curse. It's a blessing because there's a little pocket of your consciousness that's unconscious. And if it's unconscious, it's going to cause pain. And so the only answer to unconsciousness is to shine more and more and more and more light on it until it becomes conscious, and then it's healed. The hard stuff only works us from below our consciousness. It's always when we're asleep, spiritually, this stuff happens. So what if every single interaction is moving you to become more conscious? Wow, if all of you talk to me about relationships, and I think most of you did, if you became more awake spiritually as a result of that relationship, wow. If you came to more inner peace as a result of, wow. You couldn't buy that with money. You cannot buy inner peace, but you can gain it through working your lessons, and they can be joyful lessons. And I think I had 2 final slides here I'll show you before the meditation, and that's that. Sorry. Let me talk about breaking soul contracts. It's possible to break a soul contract, but the way to break it is by graduating from it. So some people say, well, I have this disease, or I have this bad relationship, or I'm constantly poor. I guess that's my soul contract. No, it was your contract to have that experience so you can learn how to escape from it. Don't use a limiting situation as an excuse to justify an erroneous soul contract. So the purpose of that is for you to figure out how to get out of it, how to heal the relationship, how to feel better, how to get your finances in order. And then the soul contract has served you well. And 2 quotes from A Course in Miracles. All things are lessons that God would have me learn, and a happy outcome to all things is sure. Remember those 2. Those are 2 lessons from the workbook of the Course. Okay. Nishank, is anybody else in the queue for written stuff before we close?
Yeah, Alan, so one question you already answered on breaking soul contracts, so that's done.
Okay.
And the other is when you spoke about beliefs, that your beliefs, I mean, you can get to know what your beliefs are by seeing what you're getting.
Yes.
So the question is, do we need to root out beliefs, or can we just go through life being aware of those beliefs and the awareness is good enough?
Awareness is the beginning of rooting them out, because if you have a negative limiting belief, it's going to keep hurting you as long as you keep acting on it. So I wouldn't suggest putting up with a negative belief, just saying, well, I guess I just must believe that. The purpose of becoming aware of the limiting belief is to shine light on it, to recognize that it cannot really limit you. There's always an illusion. There's always an ego trick of the mind behind a limiting belief. And when you call it to the light, no limiting belief can stand the light of true awareness. It's like little bugs that run, if you lift a rock up and there's bugs under it, they all run for cover because they can't stand the light. So when you shine light on a limiting belief, that is the beginning of healing it. And when you shine enough light on it, it becomes healed, because no illusion can stand the light of truth. And when you come to it with a true intention to have truth, then the illusion must evaporate. Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close with a nice meditation. Thank you all for joining. I hope this has been helpful to you. It's really interesting stuff to me. I hope you will use it. And if we see you on another webinar sometime, it'll be nice to hear from you about the results of your explorations. Okay. Close your eyes for a final moment, if you would. Take a breath. And I like the image of standing on a mountain overlooking a valley. And in the valley is a road that represents the path of your life. So trace that road back to the beginning. And notice that your path is intersected with other paths. You have parents, siblings, relatives. And assume that everybody whose path intersected yours was for a reason. So why do you think you were born into that family? For better or worse? It's always better, really, but for good times and hard times. What were your soul contracts with your parents? What did they teach you? How did you learn and grow through your experience of them? How about your siblings? Why did you choose a family with them in it? Then you went to school, you had teachers, fellow students. What was the purpose of your soul attracting the ones who loved you and the ones who challenged you? Aren't you brilliant? What a brilliant soul you had to set this all up in your favor. You grew into your teen years. Lots of energy was moving there. Became a young adult. Maybe you married. Maybe you went to school. What were your lessons of relationship around early marriage? What were your soul contracts with people you dated before marriage? Even one date with somebody They were no accident. A lot of us went on to have families. What in you drew your children to you? The wonderful elements and the hard elements. How were they co-creators with you on your spiritual journey? A lot of us went into the business world. What soul contracts did you have with your workers and your employer and your colleagues and your clients? Oh my God, there's so many soul lessons in business. A lot of us met a guru or a mentor, spiritual guide. How has your guide served you on your spiritual growth? So take a moment now just to get the big picture overview. And we drop into a place of deep gratitude. Wow, I thought all this stuff was random. Wow. It's part of a divine mosaic, guided literally by the hand of a loving God. Wow, I'm not alone. Wow, God was my co-creator in this adventure. Wow, all these people showed up to help me and me to help them. Whew. It's a whole different story than I've been told. So let's take a final moment to thank the people who have touched us the most. Those who have loved us, those who have challenged us. Thank you for helping me learn and grow. Wow, I'm ahead of where I was. My goodness. And finally, thank yourself. You must have been a very courageous being to dive into a sea of illusion in order to find your way to truth. You must have been very courageous to take on challenging relationships. You must have been very loving to choose love anyway. You must really love yourself to have attracted the people who sincerely loved you and supported you. Wow. You deserve a medal. Just for showing up and saying, no, it's going to be a strange trip, but I'm doing it. And you dove in. And you found your way to higher ground. If you're in this seminar, live or to the recording, you have found your way somehow to higher ground. And that is the ground on which we are now established. Wow. Let us take this confidence and this faith and this peace into our day now. Into our day and our week and our life. Isn't it wonderful to know that there's a greater picture for our life than we thought? That there is love behind all events. We're never alone. We are whole. We are empowered. We are guided. We are comforted. And we love. Okay, take another breath when you're ready. Open your eyes if you like. We'll close now. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so honored to play with you in this divine adventure. Thank you, Nishank, for being once again the master facilitator. Thank you for all those who spoke up. Thank you for those who listened. We're really doing this. We're really on the path. Happy ending to outcome. A happy outcome to all things is assured. And so it is.